Hello and welcome everyone to today's VIP lifestyle training. Some feedback that I have gotten from you guys is that you would like more content from the lovely Dr. Germán Garcia Fresco, who is sitting to my right. So you ask, I deliver. Germán, for those of you who don't know the wonderful doctor, and you should follow him on Snapchat at Dr. Fresco. It's highly entertaining and
Follow
informative.
Dr. Fresco.
Yes. So, Germán, why don't you just kind of give us a little bit of an introduction for those who haven't met you before, and then we'll get into why we're doing what we're doing today.
Okay. Yeah, so for those of you who do not know me, I am Dr. Fresco. I have a PhD in neuroscience from the University of North Carolina. And over the past few years, I've been learning more about cognitive neuroscience and trying to learn and adapt a lot of that stuff in what we do. But also, we've been getting into a lot of the health and nutrition science, especially with Thai. So we want to be able to provide people with the right tools, the right information, and the right education so they can make the right life choices to get a better life. So
Yes.
Some of the things we're doing is we are creating meal replacements. I am just about to launch a brain pill called Neuro 67.
Yes.
Really excited. So hopefully in 2 weeks, I don't know when you're watching this video, but it might have been launched by then. So yeah, really cool stuff. And one of the things that we are really focused is on healthy eating. So I guess this is what brings us today,
Yes.
right?
We were talking the other day in the office, and if you've seen the trainers with Kelly LeVeque, she talks about sugar, and I have a huge sweet tooth. My parents didn't.
You're not the only one.
Yeah, parents wouldn't let me eat a lot of sugar when I was a kid, so of course I became obsessed with it. But I was talking to Germán, and he was kind of talking about studies he's been doing about sugar and how much sugar is actually hidden in our foods. And so that was kind of inspired me because I thought, oh my gosh, this is great information. We should share this with everybody.
Yeah.
So one thing you really that really caught my eye, or my ear, I guess, is when you were talking about what parents are feeding their kids. And even if you're not a parent, it's still, I'm not a parent, I found it very interesting because you were saying, okay, here's what you think is a typical healthy food for somebody, and here's actually how much sugar it has and what you really should be feeding them. So can you kind of tell them a little bit about what I'm talking about so I'm not so esoteric here?
Absolutely. But before I say that, let's talk a little bit about sugar.
Okay.
Kind of like the basic principles of sugar. So there's lots of different sugar types that you can find in nature and in artificial nature. The main sugar that you see is the table sugar, which is sucrose, which is a combination of two sugar molecules, which is fructose and glucose. It's 50-50. Then you have your sugars that are called, people call them high fructose corn syrups, which is also the same thing. It's just the same as sucrose, only that the ratios are a little altered. The most common one is the 55-45 ratio, which is 55 units of fructose to 45 units of glucose. Okay. But it's also the same thing. So saying, I hear a lot of people saying, oh, the worst thing in the world is, high fructose corn syrup. No, it's the same. It's just as bad as it is table sugar, the white powder that you see, that you put your sugar for your coffee. Right. So then you have honey, you have fruit sugars, you have all these other, you have artificial sugars like alcohol sugars like xylitol, you have sucralose, you have all the aspartame, you have all these other sugars that also are considered artificial sweeteners, which do not go through the same pathways as fructose and glucose. Now, it is very important to know that without glucose, you would die, right? So it's crucial that you do have glucose. If you have no glucose in your body would start breaking down other sources of, fat, protein, to break down so they can harvest energy. So you need glucose. It's a must. The problem, especially in America and other countries like Mexico now, obesity rates are, I think, surpassed America now, is that we are consuming an exuberant amount of sugar as to what we're supposed to. So let's just throw a number out there. Let's say you need 100 units of sugar for your body to work properly, and we're consuming 1,000, right? So what's happening with that 900 extra units of sugar? Well, the body's trying to process it as fast and as best as it can, but it's leading to all these problems such as diabetes type 2.
Right.
Diabetes type 1 is more uncommon, it's more of an autoimmune disease, but the type 2 is the typical diabetes that we see, especially in obese people.
Now, why is this happening? Why is so much more sugar being added to our foods? Because I know this is a more recent development.
That is a great question. Okay, so the first reason was, so in the 1970s, or no, not even, the 1990s and 80s, there was a big and huge campaign to go against all the fats. That we were thinking that the real problem for obesity was because of fats. Right? Fat is what's causing, so everything started coming out fat-free, low fat, low this, lean, right? Well, what happened was the food, if you take all the fat out, see, fat gives you a sensation in your mouth, right, that it's appealing, right? So we can become addicted to fat as well. I'm not saying you have to eat all the fat you want. No, that's not what I'm saying. It's good. We kind of became conscious about fat and we did something about it, and everybody now starts buying diet-free Cokes and this and low-fat this and low-fat that. But what left is, how do the companies that are creating these products can change the taste of the product, right, so that it's still appealing to people? Because if you take all the fat out of food and you still have low sugar and not enough sodium, it's like eating cardboard. Right, it's just bad. It's not good for you. It doesn't taste good. So they have these scientists in every big company. And if you read, there's a book, a great book by Michael Pollan called
Sugar, Salt, Fat.
Sugar, Salt, Fat.
It's such a great book. It's on Ty's recommended book list. You can go click over to that tab if you haven't bought it yet.
Yes, and that book talks a lot about, it doesn't really teach you about sugar, but it teaches you about how the industry works. So it's, if you're wanting to know more of the behind the scenes, and they do mention about all these scientists that companies hired to increase what they call the bliss point. So there's a guy called, I forgot his name, but they call him Dr. Bliss. Yes. Because he's basically, his expertise is figuring out what that particular taste should be for you to want to buy and eat more. And the way they play with that is with salt, sugar, and fat. That's why the book is Salt, Sugar, Fat, or whatever the order was.
Yep.
On the title. So when you're removing a lot of the fat from the equation, well, we have to compensate with sugar or with salt, and this is what happened, is they started adding a lot of extra and excess sugars. Mm-hmm. Now, sodas, which in my opinion and in many professional opinions, some of the are probably the worst source of sugars. So if I always tell people, if you're going to cut something off, start with the sodas. Start with the sodas and the juice drink. And
you mentioned in another video that you were cutting back on soda yourself, right?
Yes. So I started cutting back on soda. I wouldn't say addicted, but I had to have my Coca-Cola every lunch and dinner. I had, you could say, an equivalent to a can of Coca-Cola for lunch and an equivalent for Coca-Cola for dinner, which I thought, I'm like, hey, I'm not, it's just a can. But when you look at a can of Coca-Cola, it has 33 grams of sugar. Right. So I was consuming right then and there 66 grams per day of Coca-Cola, which is a lot. My recommended daily allowance for added sugars is 25 grams. Yes. So I was consuming about 3 times per day. Ooh. Now you add that every day, in a month, now you consumed, it's like so much. Right. So yes, it was hard because even though I'm not addicted to Coca-Cola, I felt like I was. And as we talked about in the previous, I think we did talk about in one of the interviews, how do I, instead of changing all of a sudden, which makes it hard, you change your habits. Yeah. And this is what we're trying to teach everybody, is like, don't change your diets, don't change your habits, be more conscious about what you're buying. One of the biggest things I see in supermarkets now is you go and you buy a juice that says organic and blah, 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 and you look behind the label and it's like, 40 grams of sugar. Mm-hmm. I'm like, great, it's organic, but who cares? Right. Fruits are organic too, but fruits have a lot of bad sugars. Yeah. You know, I'm not saying don't eat sugar, don't eat fruits, don't get me wrong, and we're gonna get into the fruits in a second. But the point is, organic doesn't mean anything. In fact, there was a point that I really wanted to come up with, I wanted to do a brain drink, like an energy drink, but for the brain.
Right.
And as I was studying and figuring out and doing all the research and manufacturing and all that stuff, I learned that organic means as long as you have one organic product in your drink or your product, you can call it organic.
Jeez.
So you can have the crappiest ingredients and have one organic compound and then say it's organic, right? Yeah, or from organic sources, right. Which means now your brain goes, oh, this is organic. I've tested in the supermarket, you know, and if my wife watches this, she's going to get mad at me for pointing her out. But you know, one time, you know, there was 2 juices. They were apple juice, and it was for the kids. And she immediately grabbed the organic apple juice. And right next to it, it was the Welch's, I think, or the Mott's. I don't remember which one it was. But I grabbed both of them, and I looked at them. And the one that said organic had about 10 more grams per serving of sugar than the Mott's or the Welch's. Wow. I'm like, here we go. You know, see, you didn't read the label. Right. And this is what we got. They were both terrible. Mm-hmm. You know, one had 25 grams, the other one had 35 grams per serving. I haven't really found any juice. I mean, you go to the supermarket and it's these huge aisles with juices and sodas. And out of that whole aisle, you might find 1 or 2 that you could say, okay, maybe I could drink this, right? It's just terrible. Jeez. Sprite, a lot of people are like, oh no, I drink Sprite, it's healthier. It has 1 gram less of sugar than Coca-Cola. Wow. So, you know, they're just terrible. There's nothing you can do to justify drinking a Coca-Cola. Now, once in a while, you're not gonna die. You're not gonna kill yourself. You're not going to become obese. You're not going to be fat if, you know, on the weekend, on Sunday, you get together with your friends and decide to drink beers or to drink a Coca-Cola or to have a big, you know, chunk of cake. It's okay. Even if you do it for a whole week while you're on vacation, it's fine. Just remember that your body gets stressed. The longer you prolong the amount of food and sugar and toxins that you give to your body, the longer that it takes for it to get better. So going back to the sugars, and now I want to explain to you why the fructose sugar. So in my opinion, fructose is one of the biggest toxins we consume. Now people can say, hey, but we have fructose is in all the fruits, so you're telling me I'm consuming toxins. Well, let me ask you this. If you were going to drink an orange juice, how many oranges would you have to squeeze in order to get a big cup of orange juice?
I don't know, maybe 4?
Yeah, probably it's more like 7 or 8.
Oh, man.
To get a big glass of, you know,
wow.
a big glass of orange juice, you need 7 or 8.
Jeez.
So my question to you now is, would you eat 7 or 8 oranges right now as a little snack?
No, I'd have 1.
Exactly, you would have 1. Exactly. So when you drink a natural orange juice or a natural juice from fruits, you're not consuming 1 or 2 fruits. You're consuming 6, 7, 8, right? And then if you're having, let's say, lunch, and you might have 1 or 2 glasses of juice because, you know, you're thirsty, you're eating. So now you're consuming, you know, 14 oranges in
when
one
you put
shot.
it that way, that
exactly
changes everything. So for your question below, to make yourself a little bit more aware, because what's step 1 of the 67 steps? Awareness. Go into your pantry, or if you're at work or school, go into the convenience store, go into the break room, and find something that you didn't think had that much sugar in it, and let us know how much sugar it has in it, and if you're going to cut it out of your diet.
And throw it away.
Right.
Actually, me and my family went through the pantry and threw away like so many things that it's amazing how much you accumulate without knowing.
Yeah.
Because you buy a cookie today and this thing tomorrow, and then next thing you know is you're packed with sugar containing items in your pantry. So
let us know below the sugar-free or sugar-filled item you're going to cut out of your diet, and how many grams of sugar it has that you didn't really expect it to. And we will see you on the next lesson.
Thank you.